Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We value your time and presence. Today, my colleague and I will be presenting on our most recent online pilot program that we coordinated this past summer, titled Virtual Reality Engineering Summer Camp, VRES. Before we get into it, we'd like to briefly introduce ourselves. My name is Mario Flores. I work under the Federal AHSIE Hispanic Serving Institutions STEM grant as the STEM Outreach Coordinator for Mission College. Mission College is a community college located in Santa Clara, California. My main role is essentially to provide opportunities for first-generation, low-income, Hispanic, and minority students while exposing them to degrees and careers in the STEM field. I have coordinated various programs and events for our community, ranging from Noche de Ciencias, a variation of summer STEM camps, helped in the creation of our district's K-16 STEAM Expo, where Mission College is the host campus, and many more. Also fundamental to my role is the ability to establish partnerships with local school districts and leverage these collaborations to expand student and family engagement. Next, I'll let my colleague introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fadi Castronovo. I'm an assistant professor of engineering at California State University, East Bay. I'm part of the engineering department in the construction management program. My research focus and also my teaching focus has been leveraging innovative technologies such as building information modeling, which is a type of 3D modeling, and also virtual and augmented reality for the enhancement of construction management, but also the enhancement of teaching construction management students. At Cal State East Bay, I've created several different types of research groups, such as the Immersive and Interactive Research Group, which focuses on the development of interactive workspaces for integrated project teams, leveraging technology such as virtual reality, augmented reality, telecommunications, and so forth. I also created the STEM Educational Gaming Research Group, which focuses on leveraging engaging and innovative technology to enhance education for future construction managers and engineers. And next, I'm going to pass it back to Mario.
To begin, our online virtual reality engineering summer camp program wouldn't have been as successful as it was if it wasn't for the strong partnerships that we have in place. Interesting to note, this online VRES camp was originally being planned as a residential VRES camp. Our students were going to be spending a week at Cal State East Bay's dorms, eating in their dining commons, going to the virtual reality lab during the day, and learning about VR engineering concepts. We also had 2 field trips planned where our students were going to visit 2 construction sites. But as you all know, COVID-19 quickly spread through our nation, and with a couple of weeks before the start of the camp, we were faced with the predicament of either postponing, canceling, or trying to convert this program into some type of online version. With the team's general consensus, we decided to move forward with this online VRES camp. As you can see from the slide, there were multiple stakeholders at play. We had 2 local school districts, Eastside Unified High School District and Santa Clara Unified School District. At each site, we have strong liaisons who helped tremendously with the quick change of plans. They were essential to recruitment. They were calling parents, emailing students, and sending text reminders. We also had one 4-year university, California State University of East Bay, specifically the Department of Engineering, where they focus on the principles of construction management. And of course, our community college, driven through our AHSIE STEM grant team. Here is a timeline of how our project developed. I think the most important ones to really highlight are when I first reached out to Dr. Castronovo to pitch my idea on the residential VR summer STEM camp. This was in early November. Then, from January through February 2020, I was able to get the buy-in from the 2 local school districts. In between late March and early April is when we found out that everyone, including Mission College, CSU East Bay, and both of the local school districts were going online. In May is when we decided to make this an online summer STEM camp, and lastly, July 6th to the 10th is when we had our successful camp. On this slide, you can see a snapshot of the interest form we created. We opened it up in late May. The idea behind this interest form was to select a total of 38 students. 30 would be active program participants, and the remaining 8 would be waitlisted. Each district was going to have 15 student participants and 4 waitlisted in case any of their 15 students were unable to make it. Once the application deadline closed, we had received a total of 42 student applicants. This interest form was a critical piece to the camp because it asked questions such as if they had a smartphone, the size of their phone for the VR goggle purposes. We also inquired about their Wi-Fi situation and if they had a Chromebook. The reason we asked these questions was so that we can make sure to provide them with anything they needed, such as a Wi-Fi hotspot, lending them a mobile device, or laptop. Once we had identified our 30 student participants, we started creating individualized care packages. In these care packages, we packed their VR headsets based on the size of their phone, a camp t-shirt, a folder with materials that they would be needing in order to be actively participating throughout the camp, student parent waivers, a Mission College string bag, and $50 Subway gift card, which we basically calculated 10 per day, but in reality it was up to their discretion on how these funds were used. Also, to incentivize and promote student participation and attendance, we offered an additional $50 Target gift card for those students who logged in and participated every day. I think this was key to our high attendance and participation as well. 9 days before the start of the camp, we held our curbside pickup and followed all health and distance protocols so that we could safely allow for the pickup of the students' care packages and the collection of student parent waiver forms. Important to note, because we were working with 2 different school districts, we had 2 different curbside pickup locations. It goes without saying that each location was near their own school district.
Okay, so now we can start talking a little bit about more of the curriculum regarding the camp. And one of the first things that I decided to generate in the development of the camp was understanding what were the learning objectives that we wanted the students to achieve by the end of this program. So the first thing that we wanted the students to get was that we wanted to get them to generate and create virtual models of built environments. And by built environments, I mainly mean architecture. And that's going to be something that I'm going to be talking about later on, but we wanted them to at least get a taste for how do you generate these 3D models and what is the software that you use in order to create it. In addition to that, we also wanted the students to gain not only the skill sets, for example, of creating the 3D model, but also knowledge and concepts. So it's not just here is a software for you to learn, but also here is the reason why you should be learning. So they were introduced to the process of the engineering design method. They had to generate also different types of storyboards. So really gaining not only a skill set, but also knowledge that can be really fundamental for when they enter college and start taking their first intro class that they can refer back to, and it can be really foundational. In addition to this, I also wanted them to see the applications outside of the current academic world, but also see how in the industry applies all of these skill sets and knowledge that they're gaining, in particular as it relates to virtual reality visualization in the world of engineering, architecture, and construction. And lastly, we wanted the students to also get them to really feel like they could achieve STEM degrees, right? They had improved their identity and self-efficacy and self-understanding of their own, and feel like they could actually pursue an engineering degree in the future. So getting them a little bit of a taste and turning them onto engineering. Now, some of these objectives and goals, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. So first, we want them to explore the latest research in virtual reality. Second, I wanted them to use prototyping design processes to develop the 3D models of built environments. Third, I wanted them to evaluate through qualitative feedback the impact of the simulation to determine if the learning were achieved. So that's on my part, not for the students. And lastly, I wanted to also get industry professionals to do a guest lecture and introduce to the students their experience in leveraging not only the software, but also their experience in being an engineer. Lastly, the skills that we wanted the students to acquire were related to the engineering design process. So as I mentioned before, gaining that knowledge of the engineering design process, but also the skill sets. Also, understand how to create user experiences and storyboards and concept models. So the students had the chance to draw out 3D models, how they would interact with the building and the concepts. And I'll explain what that building is in a little bit. But also gain a good proficiency with SketchUp, Make, to develop mass models of these buildings. And so I'm going to go a little bit into detail into what each one of these and give you more of an understanding of what each of these, how each of these objectives, goals, and skills were met. But before that, let me show you a quick video of what it was like to be hosting the camp online.
Okay, it doesn't turn off the volume. But you can see here, and this, if you wanted to see an actual missile in real life, you would have to probably go to NASA, right? And do that, right? Other stuff. And then I'm gonna launch this missile, probably break the roof of my house. And it's taking off, right? Has been the highlight so far of this program for you?
I have two highlights. I think the VR thing is really interesting. It's really cool. I was playing with my little cousins later on yesterday. I was showing them and they were like so fascinated with it. And then I think the 3D building is really interesting.
All right, I see somebody writing, engineering is a way of creating innovative and realistic solutions to problems we want to solve. And then engineering is what is used to design building, structure, machines, and other things. So in the meantime, I'm gonna write some of these.
Click on it and say we want to see the heart. And then you can see an actual heart. Well, it's not a real heart, but it's a virtual heart. And then learn about different components of the brain. So
when I found out there's biomedical engineering, I was like, oh, I'm getting more in the medical field. Since I originally want to be an anesthesiologist.
Some of the things that, for example, what virtual reality allows you to do is, as I showed you yesterday, is find mistakes before you actually build the actual building. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with the glass floor? So somebody said that it can break easily. So actually that was not the problem. People that noticed the mistake were ladies. What's wrong with this?
Well, it's see-through, so everything can be seen from underneath up.
Exactly. So this is something that is really important because unfortunately architects and engineers tend to be males. So what virtual reality allows you to do is get to see things and maybe interact with other people from a different point of view. And then you're gonna click on the first icon that says push pull. I click on it once, and then I move my mouse up. On the bottom right, you'll see a specific height. Let's do about 10 feet.
Sure. Oh, this looks great. Looks great. Nice. I like the large kind of like tent feel that you can provide some shade, especially here in California. It gets really hot. So what do you think you're going to be doing next?
I think next I'm gonna start doing like the green roof and like coloring the building and adding windows.
Great.
All right, so you get to see how much of an impact this camp has really made on the students. And I want to now circle back to some of the content that you got to see while during this video and kind of show you how we structure the learning and what are the things and the activities that we want the students to do. So this is the schedule of the camp. The first, it was over 5 days, and you can see that we didn't get the students to spend a lot of times in front of the computer screen. We started about 10 a.m. and ended at 12:30 a.m. And the reason is because we didn't want the students to just feel overwhelmed and just fatigued by the end of every day by spending so much time in front of a computer. And you can see there's a lot of different breaks. Not only there's a lot of different breaks, but there's also some gaming in there as well. So first, we introduced to the students the program and them as different participants. We wanted to understand who were the students that were participating in this program. So having a little bit of an icebreaker activity was really fun. Then we introduced the students, or I introduced to the students what was engineering. So understanding what is engineering at large, what are the different things that engineers do. And also getting to see a video about what are the different types of disciplines. We also got them to do some concept modeling, and in particular creating storyboards and 3D models and 3D sketches of buildings. This is one of my favorite parts because we got the students to watch a video of the making of Finding Nemo and the process of generating storyboards. And then they actually got to create them themselves and then jump right into the 3D model. And then we had a second guest lecturer, which is a professional engineer. He works for an electric company and showed us different types of 3D models that he uses. So the students could see that they're learning, that they are gaining those skill sets directly translate onto the real world. So let me give you some of the learning examples of the learning modules. So I mentioned that first we got the students to be introduced to the different engineering disciplines. So this is probably the most, I want to say, traditional version of learning that you can have, where I went through and kind of discussed the different types of engineering disciplines that are out there and gave them a general presentation on that. I also gave them a general presentation on what engineering is at large. But in addition to that, we also got them to play around. And as I mentioned before, we really wanted them to be introduced to virtual reality and augmented reality. And I wanted them to take all these concepts and really take them into their hands and really get to interact with the environment right away. And so you can see here that the students are, and I forget particularly which is the activity that we're doing here, but there's quite a large number of activities. And if you're interested, you can definitely reach out to me and ask me what were some of the activities that we did. But you can see here that the students are really engaged, right? They're really doing, and it's not just listening to me speaking, but they're actually doing things on their own and exploring and going through an environment that immerses them in that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So really getting that exposure through VR is really key to getting them motivated into learning. So I talked about introducing the engineering design process. So here was, as I mentioned, a quick presentation, again, traditional, but then active learning where they had to create, work together in designing a waterproof bag based on specific steps that we gave them. And then also they needed to create their concepts. So we challenged the students to create the new STEM building for the California State University East Bay, or my university, for them to create a new STEM building for the incoming freshman students. And so they had to create a just a box, like, or just the outside, not the inside, of what that building will look like. And we gave them specific requirements. For example, they had to have at least 3 floors, had to have lots of sunlight, had to have a green roof, had to have scientific elements mixed inside of that building. And then showing them what they could actually generate. And so they could play around with shapes, they could play around with elements such as the glass, the bricks, the windows, and so really getting them to experiment with different types of elements. Once they did that on paper, we actually got them to create their models in SketchUp. So one of the main challenges that we had when developing this program was that, SketchUp Make 2017 is actually a professional software. It's a software that engineers and architects use. And so the limitation was that the students only had a Chromebook, and you're not really able to install the general version of SketchUp on a Chromebook. And so we had to get creative, and thankfully SketchUp provides a web-based version of its software that you can run directly on your web browser. So we gave them a crash tutorial on the web browser on how to create SketchUp, and you saw that in the video. And then ask them, go for it, create something. It doesn't matter whether it works, whether it's crazy or not, just getting them to at least experiment with the software, experiment with their ideas. The idea of getting them to create a real building that had to be really functional, that comes later. That's something that us as engineers or in undergraduate school they will learn, but at least getting them turned on to the software and getting them turned on to the concept was really key for them to not have that pressure of having to have lots of limitation, right? Experiment and explore, right? And so with SketchUp Make Online, the web version, they were able to do that. As I mentioned, we also had professional engineers come by and give presentations on their life experience. So we prepared some questions for them, and also the students got to ask questions as well. And in this one in particular was really great because we had this a professional woman engineer that came and presented on her experience of being a woman and a person of color inside of the engineering world, and as an immigrant as well. So it was really a beautiful example of how there is the space, and there must be the space for all individuals inside of the engineering world. And so she really, I believe that she really inspired not only me, but also the students in seeing that there is the room and the space for everybody inside of this discipline. And it's not just something that is only accessible to elite or people that have access to financials. So really important story to share. Similarly, we had another professional engineer show examples of the actual work that they do. So you can see here, this is a CAD model created in Revit and viewed in Navisworks, which are different types of professional software out there. But he was sharing his experience in working as an engineer and generating these 3D models, something that the students could take back and then really see the connection between what they're learning and what they could be doing in the future as professional engineers. So a little bit of the feedback that we got and evaluation of this camp. We were really interested in understanding what was the impact of that the camp had on the students, and really understanding what are the population that we're working with, but also what is the sense that they got. Did they get turned on to engineering? Did they find it? Did they find the camp to not be successful? So we wanted to have that evaluation. So you can see here that first of all, we did some demographics. We had quite a large female representation, which is great. Unfortunately, in most of my engineering classes, I tend to have maybe 10% to be female, but this was great to see such a large representation of female students inside of our camp. Something that I attribute to Mario and his team and bringing all these really great students that and really showing that there was this impact on the students. And also I wanted to show that, these students are coming from a fairly diverse background. And as Mario mentioned, we wanted to particularly target Latinx students. So you can see here that English is spoken only about 19% always, sometimes 50%, and almost always 30%. That's big, that's big. That's a big impact in targeting students that might be left behind because of their social demographics, but also because of their immigration status or their cultural status. That it's really important to tackle these students as well. You can see also that a lot of these students might be first generation, and not only first generation, but also might be students that have parents that did not graduate from high school. And so in blue, you can see whether they graduated from high school or not. So for both the mother and or the father or the adult female and adult male in the family, 42% and 42% did not graduate high school. And so illustrating to these students that there is potential for them to go beyond high school and achieving these engineering degrees, and seeing them and illustrating them a pathway, I believe is extremely important. And so the next thing that we wanted to see I wanted to see whether the students felt successful during the camp, right? First, we asked them, do you think you're going to do a good job, or do you think this is going to be easy for me? Do you think you're going to be successful? Do you think you're going to be doing a better job? And I think I did well overall. And we did this before the camp and after the camp. And you can see here that especially for doing a good job, feeling successful, feeling that they did a better job than others, feeling more successful than everybody else, and also I did everything well, they actually grew in terms of the feedback. So from a scale from 1 to 3, and they felt that on average they grew after the camp. We're interested in understanding their fascination with STEM. And in particular, we wanted to see whether they loved designing things or figuring things out, or building things, or designing things makes me more excited. And you can see here that, we didn't run any type of statistical analysis, but you can see here that after the camp, there was always a little bit of an uptick, right? It's particular in regards to designing and building, and also talking about engineering and STEM to family and friends. All of these are things that can build the student's identity, all things that can build their self-efficacy, their self-image, all things that they will help them get turned on to STEM fields. And it doesn't have to be engineering, it can be any type of STEM field. Lastly, I wanted to also see is how important do they feel or they value STEM as a person, from a personal perspective, And so you can see here that pretty much everywhere except for maybe I think math ideas are valuable, and math is always the one that is the most tricky. But they wrote that, how do you feel, how important do you think it is for you to learn engineering? And you can see that there was definitely an uptick there. Engineers make a better world place to live. So they already believe that. And so I didn't need to convince them that engineers are pretty awesome, which we are. They also saw that technology does it can help to make the world a better place. they already believe that scientists also have a very important job. They also saw that technology is one of the most important things in the world for them. Math is always the toughest one. And they also saw an uptake in seeing that knowing science is important for being a good citizen, something that we really need nowadays to understand that the role that science has in our everyday life. And so seeing that uptake is also another really powerful thing to see. So some of the success and challenges, and I'm going to turn Mario on for this, and I would like for him to kind of share some of the success and challenges.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Fadi Castronovo. So, absolutely, some of our strengths and successes were definitely had to do with our strong partnerships, as we mentioned earlier in the beginning of the presentation, the interactive and engaging curriculum that Dr. Castronovo, delivered, and also the incentives, right? I think the $50 Target gift card at the end, right, that the students received really incentivized students to tune in on time every day and really be engaged, right? And also, as we could see from the surveys, right, the increase of engineering that arose from this camp. Some of the challenges were, of course, the virtual space, right, not being in person, also the headsets, right? Even though we did have that interest form, I don't think all students read the fine print, right? So some of the students claimed that they had a smaller phone, and so we got them a smaller VR goggle. And then when it came day for the VR camp, right, some of their phones were actually much bigger, and they needed the bigger size. Luckily, we did order extras, and we were able to accommodate these students. Time, as we mentioned in the beginning, right, we only had a few weeks to kind of flip this program around, since at the beginning it was going to be a residential. Another challenge was internet connections, right? And I think we're all dealing with that. Every now and then I get logged off Zoom, right? Internet gets a little clogged up. So our students were also going through some of that. Chromebooks was another limitation that we had. But, huge props to Dr. Castronovo. He did his research. He figured out how to tailor a curriculum and activities that would be allowed through the Chromebooks. So huge shout out to him. Thank you very much. Well, this concludes our presentation. If you'd like to know more information regarding how this was put together, about specifically perhaps the coordination behind it and or the curriculum behind it, by all means, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Dr. Fadi Castronovo. We will definitely be awaiting your emails and would be more than happy to connect.